Heather, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, great. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
It is 5:01 on Wednesday, June 4th, 2025, and I call this meeting of the Meridian Historic Preservation Commission to order. Roll call. Blaine Johnston here. Pam Jagosh, not. Jack Keller.
Here.
Heather Giacomo.
Here.
Patrick Giddings.
Here.
Ken Freeze.
Here.
Deborah Pitts. Not here. Before we adopt the agenda, I'm going to amend it. We have a recognition for Mr. Keller to do also. So with that, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Freeze, joint second by Keller and Giddings to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Mr. Keller. Thank you for your 4 years
Of course.
of being here. We appreciate all your time and efforts you put in. So with that,
Meridian, please. That's very awesome.
there you go. There's a card for you. Thank you. Happy meeting. With you. It's not much, but it's the least we can do.
Really cool. Thank you.
All right, approval of minutes of our April 24th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the minutes from the previous month's meeting.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Freeze, second by Commissioner Keller for approval of our minutes of our April 24 meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We're going to old business. Walking tour recap and upcoming tours. You led tour last in May?
Yeah, I think, didn't we meet after that?
No, we haven't.
Oh. Well, in that case, we did the tour. It was raining cats and dogs for almost all of it, but not quite.
Yeah,
And we had two, I believe they were retired teachers that came out. And so, it was a lot of fun. The weather could have been a lot better, but, we did it anyway, and
it's always hit and miss, so.
that's right.
How many people braved the rain to do the tour?
Two.
Okay,
Yeah,
two. Okay,
better than none.
yeah.
So yeah, got pretty wet.
Yeah.
It cleared up towards the end. It
Not bad,
wasn't
okay.
bad. Mhm.
So our next tour will be on the 21st of June. And Ms. Schiffler, do you remember who's leading that and who's helping?
I believe it's you and Ken.
That's what I thought.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, along those lines, though, this will also be our public engagement day. And so we are hoping some commissioners can man the booth that day. Maybe you and Ken will be available. Maybe it could be unmanned while you're doing the tour and come back, but we are hoping to have commissioners man the booth.
Okay. So yeah, commissioners keep that day open. So you're available to help us out on that day. With that, any updates from Whole Films?
He's begun work and should get the 360 video back probably sometime in the next month. And he'll have some still images too. I can share those with the rest of the commission for any feedback before he puts them on the website.
Perfect, thank you. Still waiting to hear back from Zamzow's on their mill, if they're still interested in, or if they would like to be interested in having that facility nominated on the National Registry. As soon as I hear back from them, we'll talk about it, but we'll just keep this on the agenda until we have any further information. With that, we will go on to new business. Discuss section 106 review and request regarding an adverse effect to the 8-mile lateral for the Western States Equipment parking lot. The city received an email a couple of weeks ago on this. Western States Equipment would like to expand their parking lot to the east and cover the 8-mile lateral. Since that is considered a waterway, Corps of Engineers needs to approve that. But also since that is considered potentially historic properties, they have to do what's called a Section 106 review. But with that, they actually started doing work before they had all the approval. So, Ms. Schiffler may have to help me out in this. SHPO and Army Corps of Engineers would like to know if this commission would like to be involved with the mediation, mitigation that may take place with that work. My first thought is, yes, I would like to know what's going to go on. Because they've covered it, or they started doing the work and they've actually destroyed part of that lateral. What can they do to fix it? If not, is there some sort of monetary, for lack of a better word, gift that they give to the city, that maybe this commission or something, because of the work done? Did I get that right?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think so. So the request that we had from the Army Corps of Engineers, do we want to be a part of the mitigation meetings? Those mitigation meetings are between SHPO and the developer, but they're inviting us to be at the table. And a couple of options that the mitigation might look like, or that they've seen in other cases. The Army Corps person who is out of Portland said that they recently did a similar thing with a project that happened in Nampa. And they either might award funds to historic preservation commission, local preservation commissions for projects that they want to do, or the other option might be some signage. So like signage near the project that's informational and historic, that's sort of maybe about the waterway or something.
Have you received any word from the Corps of Engineers on when the meetings might take place?
Not yet.
Okay. I know I would probably be interested in being part of those. I'm assuming they're going to be Zoom calls. Do we need more than one commission member or just one enough, do you think? Up to the commission. Mr.
The
Giddings.
commission.
Yeah, it would just depend on the date. June's kind of a month for me, so
Okay.
depending on the date, and especially if it was a Zoom call, I could probably at least listen.
It will be virtual.
Okay. So as soon as Ms. Schiffler gets that information, she will probably pass it on to us and let us know.
I do have a question about that. Is the expectation that we're listeners in these meetings, or does the commission have some input here, or do we just kind of play it by ear?
I think we're considered stakeholders, so we have a say in what should take place.
Okay,
So,
I read the packet. I have walked along that lateral before, and I was almost dumbfounded by the historic significance of what appears to be a simple lateral, one of many passing through the area. And I was a little disappointed when I saw that there was, and again, I didn't know the historic significance while I was driving by there, seeing them covering it over. I thought, well, there goes part of the lateral.
yeah.
Another one. But like I said, when I was reading the packet and learning about it, like I said, I was just sort of floored by the historic significance of it.
Mhm.
And it's not something we can pick up and move.
No, you can't pick it up and so we'll just wait and see what they have to say and we'll just continue the discussion and,
Yeah.
I'm sure Mr. Nogue will probably be involved with it also, but I'm not sure. He's not here, but we'll have to talk to him and find out. This is the first time since I've been on the commission that we've had a section 106 review come before. So it's new to me too.
Okay.
All right. With that, historic preservation plan. Sherry, you're up. We're down and dirty. We're gonna get out of here as soon as we can.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the commission. Am I doing this right? Can you hear me okay? Okay, can you all, that sounds
Mhm.
amplified. Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
I will allow Cassandra to, I almost called you Cassie. Okay. I'll allow you to share the goals and objectives document. So just a quick recap of where we are, mainly probably for Jack's benefit. We are midway, I'd say, through the preservation planning process. And we've established what some of the issues and concerns are through the SWOT analysis. We conducted a public survey with 100 and plus respondees. And I think at your last meeting, you reviewed those responses. That sound right? I wasn't here, but I think
Mhm.
the survey responses.
I attached them to this meeting. We haven't had a meeting since then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you've seen the survey responses, about 10 substantive questions, I would say, 8 or 9 or 8 substantive questions. So now the trick is to translate all that information into sort of a going forward plan. And it was my understanding when you brought me on and in subsequent conversations with at least a couple of you, that the current preservation plan goals and objectives were satisfactory. That while many things have changed in Meridian, goals are aspirational, you're still aspiring for that
Mhm.
world peace that we expect at the goal level. The strategies and the objectives, I don't even think you necessarily had strategies. You just had a list underneath each goal for objectives. So I'm referring to the 2014
14.
plan, so not that long ago. So a couple of you in our little team meetings, our subcommittee meetings, if you will, looked over, and Cassandra looked over the current plan and did some strikeout and underline, which is kind of how I was going to present this to you tonight, but things got messy real fast. So I went ahead and just did this clean version. I do have a strikeout and underline here. So if you're like, where did that come from? I could probably look and tell you whether it's in the 2014 plan or whether, something that I made up. So what I thought we would do tonight is go through these. It's about 4 pages, not even, with 4 goals. And just kind of talk about them and see how you feel. In review, each time I look at it and I go back to the SWOT and I go back to, the survey, I think of things that, could be tweaked or could be better or could be, rearranged. I've highlighted some things in here which are carryovers from the last plan, which sound kind of good, but I'm not sure, given the modifications that we're talking about, whether they really are necessary. So maybe we could delete them, knowing that we've covered them somewhere else. Let's see, what else do I want to say by way of preamble? Whatever we agree on tonight, and let's say you guys take till Monday to make some more recommended changes after we've talked about this together. Next week, I will pull together a version of this that we will take to the public. So the 21st, which Cassandra is just reminding us of, on the 21st, we'll have a booth at the farmer's market, and we'll have a board that gives kind of the overview of this project, which you've all seen because I had it with me at the Hidden Gems. And then I'll have 2 boards that will show the goals, objectives, and strategies. They'll just be typed 24 by 36 boards on easels. And we'll have a pack of stickers, and we'll have a pack of stickies, Post-it notes. And we're going to ask the public to put a star by the ones they like, put a red dot by the ones they don't, put a sticky note if they have a change. So it'll be a little interactive session. We'll have instructions, so it can be unmanned. But if you don't want, the junior high kids coming through and swiping the stickers for their own malicious follies, it might be nice to have someone there to explain, what is intended here. Meaning that we'll have another whack at these goals, objectives, and strategies after we get that feedback. So we don't have to get it all perfect tonight, but we want to get it, in a spot that you feel comfortable with. That having been said, this would also be something to share maybe with leadership, or perhaps they saw the survey.
I don't know that they've seen the result. Leadership hasn't really seen the results of the survey, but yes, and I've, also, sorry to butt in. I've been talking to planning about how we're working on this, and they're also doing a little bit of a comp plan, just overview as well at the same time. So once we have these goals, I'm going to share it with planning to see if there's ways that they could work it into the comp plan as they're doing the comp plan updates. And sorry to keep butting in with my own things. I have a request tonight as we go through these. Something that we do on the comp plan is with each of the strategies, they're either rated ongoing, low, medium, high, or very high. And what that means, ongoing is things that we're currently doing. Yes, we want to keep doing. Low means, yes, it's in the next 10 years. I think medium is like 5 to 10 years. High is like you'd want to do it in like 3 to 5 years, and very high is like something that you'd want to do in the next year. So as we go through these, I'd really like you to also, is this an ongoing, low, medium, or high priority item? Which also helps me as your staff person, like what are the things we really need to, because if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. So like which ones, they're all priorities, they're all really good goals, but which ones does the Historic Preservation Commission want to focus on? And I hope that, we haven't talked about that, so I hope that fits in with.
Yeah,
you wanna do.
I do that after we get them confirmed to the next spot, to a place where we kind of know what all the strategies are, because they're pretty in flex now. But yes, we want to put them in priority groupings at the end. And we also want to assign partners. So clearly you guys are the leads because this is for your commission. But in some instances, you're going to have to work with, obviously, Parks and Rec, because they're your staff, but the planning department, the city council, so that's an expectation I have, is that the implementation chapter will have just what, you should have it in mind, because if you think something is a super low priority, maybe we don't want to do it, and if it's a super high priority, why aren't you doing it already? You might be, and we could call it continue to do something. But my question was, I guess I would, if you would want to direct staff to share the survey results with the mayor and council, and invite them to stop by the booth on, the farmer's market booth, to kind of let them know where the public is trending. It might be a nice milestone, just given some of the feedback we got on the landmarking. Seems like maybe to keep them abreast of it rather than just when we're done with the project. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. I think that's it for background. Does anybody have any questions about how we got here or any of that? Okay, terrific. So the first thing I did was I moved goal 2 to goal 1. So let's just look at all the goals first, and then we'll come back around. So the first goal in my mind is always to figure out what you have. Identify and document historical and archaeological resources within the city of Meridian. That's in your current plan. It's the second goal. So I moved that to first, and you can scroll down to goal 2. Goal 2 was goal 1. Preserve, protect, and enhance, except I think I added the word protect. Preserve, protect, and enhance Meridian's historical, cultural, and agricultural heritage. I've suggested a revision to that. That's the next sentence. because it's almost identical to a statement that was in the survey that was very well liked, or, we got good feedback on. Sustain Meridian's authentic community character by preserving and protecting our historic and cultural resources. And thinking on that goal 1, where you literally call out archaeological resources, the term cultural resources includes archaeology. And given that you don't have, you're an urbanized area, so archaeological resources it's going to take some doing to find your archaeological resources. Cultural resources is a broader term, not always very well understood, because people are like, are you talking about theaters? Are you talking about galleries? No, we're talking about kind of culture over periods of time. And then you call out now agricultural heritage, which is great, but your focus is really urban these days. Even though you do have agricultural heritage, I don't know whether that's worthy of the goal, of mentioning in the goal. Not putting words in your mouth, though. I give you a chance to keep the goal as written, although I did add the word protect, which I think is important because we got a lot of feedback, and I think you all have had the frustration of, well, it's fine to have these things designated, but we don't have any means to keep somebody from tearing these things down or picking them up and moving them. So the objectives and strategies you see under this goal really have to do with the protection side, coming up with design guidelines or coming up with the demolition delay ordinance or so on and so forth. So that's why the word protect. So let's put a pin in that and go to goal 3. So goal 3 is new, I think. So inform and engage. No, it is not new. It's revised. Inform and engage residents and visitors about historic preservation programs and opportunities in our community. So, yeah, and so under here we got a lot of comments at the SWAT, or a fair number of comments about, you've got to brand yourself, people have to know who you are and what you're doing, if you're doing something, people may not know about it, and so on and so forth. This is kind of where you get into the collaborating with the library and some of the other things that came up. I think the question in the survey was, where do you go for information? So leveraging some of those other resources that you have, the advantage of being in the most populous area of the state where these resources are. So take advantage of that. Okay, and then goal 4. Goal 4 was maintain and strengthen support for historic preservation from individuals, commercial property owners, local organizations, and neighborhood groups. So basically, I took a lot of that. And moved it under goal 3. So what goal 4 is really about is getting you guys to operate more efficiently or more prominently in the system of Meridian government. And so the objectives under this are basically to get this plan done and out there, to collaborate with other city departments, which is kind of some of what Cassandra was just talking about in terms of zoning ordinance amendments, comprehensive plan amendments, getting in the system that really affects development within the city, as well as other, I don't know that you have city-owned properties that are historic. The city of Nampa has a few and has, in some instances, squandered the opportunity to make a difference on those buildings, and in other cases now is able to do that. They own a building down in Old Town, for example. Let's just scroll to the bottom of these objectives, since this one is kind of a new goal. Ensure that there are sufficient resources for the HPC to fulfill their duties. This is making sure that you get replacements for people who are leaving, to get people well positioned on your commission. You already receive annual funding, to make sure that you continue to receive annual funding. A lot of communities, this is an objective that's a big lift for them, or a strategy is a big lift for them, because they're local government isn't able to sustain that. And then this is where we dropped the consider adding a historic preservation planner to the planning division, which I know is something that Cassandra has talked about, and it came up in our strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. It's great having a staff person. Yay, you need a staff person who works for the city, but is this the best fit for you to be in Parks and Recreation? Or is it a joint position? Is there somebody, a liaison from the planning department, an official liaison that can come to some of the meetings and so forth, rather than Cassandra basically making those calls, which she has been since we've been working on the landmarks, pretty much. And I think that's it for the goals. Do you want to go back up to the top and take these one by one? Do you want to talk about anything in particular about those goals that you may or may not be comfortable with?
Scroll down to goal 2, please, Ms. Schiffler. The only one that I question, and as far as, and it probably has to do more with the public than this commission, is agricultural heritage.
Mhm.
It's been such an important part of the city for so long. I think that's gonna have, we should probably keep that phrase in there, in the goal.
Right.
Where it's at, I don't know, but I think we need to keep that agricultural heritage term in that goal.
Yep. Do you want to just drop it into the sustain authentic community character, or do you just want to make it preserve, just keep it the way it is?
I think we could drop it into that second sentence.
And
So,
do away with
yeah,
the-
protecting our historic, cultural, and agricultural heritage, or cultural resources and agricultural heritage. But I think for the public, I think it's going to be important to keep that in there.
Yep, I think that's fine. And the first, the way it's written, the first isn't bad.
Mhm.
It's just that if you're thinking about these as being 4 buckets, your first one is to identify and document. And even though some of these things have been identified and documented, they may need to be re-identified and documented, right? And then there's now that we know what they are, how do we protect them? And then the last one is how do we promote what it is that we do? And the very last one is how do we do our jobs better?
Mhm.
So those are kind of where each of these big goals are. And then we need to come up with the right objectives to go under them. So we might need to look and see if we've got an agricultural heritage objective or a strategy, like to coordinate with Ada County, or which we have somewhere else. But as it relates to actually protecting this agricultural heritage, or,
I don't know that we can protect it because it's such a development-based growth that's going on here. As
Mhm.
people continue to move in here, that farmland is going to slowly disappear and disappear. So I don't think we can protect it. I think as long as we recognize that agricultural heritage that Meridian's been based on for so many years.
Mhm.
If a big farm like the Eggers go away, we can document that, or another big farm has gone away. Let's document it somehow that's been around, and we can let the people know that it was here.
Mhm.
It's like the mill or the creamery or whatever. So-
Right. Do you want to go up to the first goal real quick, Cassandra? And maybe we are remiss here as well.
I was just gonna say that, Mr. Chair, the
Oh, go ahead.
identify and document language from this, I think is
You're really
perfect.
quiet. Can you speak up or
Oh,
turn your
let's
mic
see.
up or something?
I don't know, maybe. Is this any better? Let me work on it. I'll get back.
Okay, I think it's better. Try again.
Did you think that was better?
It is better.
Okay. I was just gonna say that the language there on the first goal, identify and document, I think is the language that we should keep or put in this place on the second goal as well. If we have, instead of preserve, we say again, identify and document. Or maybe for this first goal, we add the part about the agricultural heritage. We have archaeological, identify and document historical and archaeological resources.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, I agree, Heather. Let's go down and I'll tell you what I think might get pasted there. Identify and document our historic and cultural resources and agricultural heritage, those last 6 or 7 words there, and put them up in the place of the other phrase. Yeah, after the word document, yeah.
Because we really, like Blaine had said, or Mr. Chair had said, we really can't preserve if preservation isn't in the city's mind.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, and then not add agricultural resources to the second one,
Which is fine, yeah.
or agricultural heritage,
Yeah.
sorry. Good, good idea, Heather. Do you have any other questions, Heather, about or comments about these goals or the way we've reorganized them?
I think the first one, there was a list that we need to put in there where it says bullet list.
Yep.
So continue to conduct historic inventories. Were we conducting historic inventories before I joined the board, and do we have a list?
So this would be, there will be a list in that's a good question. So there will be a list in the plan that comes from the Idaho Cultural Resource Inventory site,
Mm-hmm.
from the State Historic Preservation Office, and there will be a map that will show the areas that have been surveyed and a table that goes with it to show what the surveys are. And then there will be a map that shows your NR listed and your NR eligible sites. Maybe sites that have been determined not eligible or unevaluated or something. So that will exist, Heather, in the body of the document. What this is intended to do is to provide that list of sites that either that documentation is outdated or those are sites that you are particularly interested in. So when we did the SWOT analysis, the mill site, you've done the Speedway now, but 5 years ago, the Speedway would have been on the list.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Giacomo, I'm actually going to screen share a different thing because I think this is kind of important for you to know that we did this. So if you go to the city's history page on the website, which I'm going to screen share here in a second. Okay, so we have some of the walking tour things. And if you go over here to the downtown reconnaissance survey, so we just did this in 2023. And so this did do an inventory. So this is a really great document. If any of the commissioners aren't familiar with it, this is a project that we did just a couple years ago. And it's an example of the type of project that we're talking about.
And this will be referenced. And actually we have a strategy about pursuing the 2 recommended NR districts that came out of that survey as a method of protection, not a method of identifying and documenting, because it's been identified and documented. But let's say out of that study, there were some disparate sites that appeared not within those squares that you went, hey, that really ties into our agricultural heritage because that was the guy who sold buggy whips or whatever, right? So you put that on this baby list under 1.1.a, and you are in a section 106 mitigation meeting, and they are looking at putting a sign in the middle of a storage unit parking lot that says there once was a lateral here, or there's a potential for money to document the site where the guy who made buggy wheels or buggy whips or something, then it's on your list. SHPO loves that. Army Corps loves that. You've done a historic preservation plan. You've had documentation and survey done. You've identified a site. This site aligns with this type of loss, this type of adverse impact. We want to give you whatever, $20,000 to have somebody do whatever it is that they do, the historic structures report, or they do a National Register nomination or something. So I did not presume to put that list in here, but I think that's something that we can certainly at the, for the market, we can have bullets and maybe put 1 or 2 sites in there and leave room for people to add more. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Heather, are you tracking?
Yes, that sounds really good.
Okay, great. And this is where we put the strategy, what was an objective, I put it under strategies here because the NRHP nominations are basically a way of conducting further study on a building. It's an inventory. It doesn't have to go here, but it's where you get that in-depth information. And then collaborating with Ada County, if Ada County were to do a historic context study about barns, which they've actually done, let's say about potato sellers or something, and you feel like, well, we could have some potato sellers in our, you guys would work together to leverage that type of study. It wouldn't make much sense for you guys to take the lead on that, being an urban area. The next objective is one I added. So some communities have local registers, which is kind of like what we talked about for the local landmark. Something like this is in the Nampa plan. They have not moved forward with it. But it was kind of a good place to put some of the landmark strategies that we had. I didn't know quite where else to put them. So yeah, that would be a way of getting around the fact that some of these buildings may not actually qualify for the National Register, but they are that important to the local history.
Mhm.
So the Modern Woodsman, for
Mhm.
example. The little districts that are, that Barbara and that TAG recommended may not pass muster with SHPO. The SHPO is still reviewing them. So they may not recommend them going forward for National Register designation, but it may be of significance to you. And there's no reason why, especially with local ordinance provisions, which is what you'll have to do with the National Register local district anyway, to
Mhm.
actually protect anything. You need to have a local district around it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So mid-century modern, that wasn't really something that was discussed, I don't think. I can't remember. But definitely, 1985 gives you some wiggle room because, doesn't it? No, 1985.
75.
Right, that gives you a 10-year
Mhm.
wiggle room to hit the 50-year mark,
Mhm.
which I did intentionally just because I think you did have quite a bit of development in the early 80s.
Mhm.
So,
Tons and tons.
Yeah.
yeah, so there may be some intact, very interesting, I don't know this, I'm speculating. So,
I think that's one of those that we may have to hire someone do another windshield survey. Okay, these homes were platted close to 50 years ago. Have them go drive past, whatever. Is there something here that is worth further investigation?
yeah. Something that can be done, I could probably work with Cassandra on this, to get it in this plan, would be a map that shows the building age, building construction.
Mhm.
So then you would know where those blocks of 70s era, 60s era buildings might be.
Mhm.
But you still have to kind of know how cool or how not cool they are.
Right.
And I can't think of very many Caldwell has a mid-century district, residential district. Boise has surveyed but not actually pulled the trigger on any. And Nampa is working on one right now, which they identified in the planning process. So yes, that would be the place to put it, evaluate parcels. And I have the Meridian impact area just so you know, because I don't know, Banbury Estates, is that you guys or is that Eagle?
Eagle.
That's Eagle. That was on the edge of, I don't even know what, when I moved here in the late 80s.
Nothing.
Yeah. And so that was the late 80s. It was probably built in, I don't know, 85, 86 maybe.
Something like that.
The last one under this last strategy is encourage the city of Meridian to support historic resources through appropriate maintenance. And that must have been I think that was in your existing plan. Is it? I'm trying to, it's not, my thing's not color coded, so it's hard for me to see. But I think it was. So I'm not sure what that means. Appropriate maintenance done by whom for what? I didn't know. And so I highlighted it because I didn't know what to do with it. Let's go down to the other objectives so we can work through this. Okay, so the objective 2.1, which was, remember 1.1, but just for the sake of argument, I just moved it down here. Those were the exact words. I personally think the term restoration is a little too highfalutin, like you restore Monticello, you restore Mount Vernon, you're not going to restore Old Town Meridian. So renovate.
Protection?
Maybe, how about
Rehabilitate.
preservation?
Promote preservation, yes. So this was kind of, we kept coming back to this when we did the SWOT analysis. How, in fact, we put a pin in it, put it on the parking lot, that we needed to spend more time thinking about Old Town. So some of these strategies I just came up with, I think. Can you go to the next page real quick? 2.1B, 2, yeah, so that's it. So there's just the 2 for Old Town. Let's get back to that Old Town one real quick. So basically, it seems like the planning division is responsible for applications as they come into Old Town. It has no real designation as a historic district. It's just everyone assumes it's a historic district. We got lots of comments on that. So to me, the first step would be to work with the planning division to talk about what is Old Town and what is required and what isn't required. Maybe look at the boundaries. I saw it was division on the website. That's why I threw and changed it to division. Anyway, and then it seems like the easiest next step would be to have design guidelines for Old Town with a priority for the historic buildings so that no one messes them up. Of course, there's nothing to keep anybody from tearing them down, but let's just assume the quaint factor is, the community character is high enough. Maybe there are other reasons why they wouldn't want to tear them down. But the design guidelines could be for existing buildings, existing historic buildings, and for new development with a lower priority not a lower priority, but a lesser standard in terms of design provisions for non-contributing or non-historic buildings. So that's where I put those things, is under this objective. And let's just scroll to the next couple of objectives.
Mr. Chair, this is Heather again. One thing on that before we move on from that one. Design guidelines. Do we have any design guidelines, Ms. Schiffler, for anything in this city?
Commissioner Giacomo, I'm not in the planning department, so I sometimes feel very unqualified to answer these kinds of questions. But yes, there's design guidelines, but there are none that relate to historic character.
I'm nervous about this one, that it might be something that might not fly well. I'm wondering if we can turn it into something like we're able to review plans or offer input on changes as opposed to us preparing the guidelines. What does everyone think about that?
Heather Blaine, this is one of those that word from basically the mayor's office is he doesn't want, let me phrase this correctly so I don't get myself in trouble. We don't want to deter development. That's part of this word, this demolition permit we were looking at earlier, is he doesn't want to have another layer of city involvement in what's going on. If they get something in there and we could look at it in a timely manner and not delay something that goes on, I think that they would be fine with that. But he doesn't want to add another layer of bureaucracy that says, okay, we can't have something go over here for a month for a demolition permit or review of guidelines. So we've got to be careful on what we do at this point. I agree with you. I think it's something that we can look at and maybe put it out as a long-term goal. I hate saying that, but it's something that we can't do immediately, but maybe something 3 to 5 years down the line, we can get this to say, okay, yeah, this is something we want to look at, that, yeah, we do want to preserve this character. We do want to preserve the feel of Old Town. So yes, we do want to have some historic guidelines on these old buildings. So I'm not trying to convolute the discussion, but yeah, something we need to work at in the long term, but I think it's something we need to put in this preservation plan as something we need to look at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds good.
I'll put in my 2 cents on that. We can certainly leave it as written or modify it slightly or however for this next couple of versions, knowing that it might not last. And certainly when we get to what Cassandra mentioned before, where we give things priorities, I would not do I've tried to put these in order of how things would go.
Mm-hmm.
The first step would be meeting with the planning department and just sort of, especially if they're working on their comp plan, figure out a way to make this, you may have you two work together.
Mhm.
And then from that might be a natural next step would be potentially doing guidelines. I would say that my experience as a planner, and being sensitive to not delaying development review, because, we're there to help the public to, the community to evolve. Having something go to a commission for a review and then submit your comments back to them can be more time consuming than just looking at some guidelines before you even submit your application, knowing that this is what is going to be expected. Better if it's in the ordinance, then right, it's a law. It's not, it's not this fuzzy design guideline thing. So to answer Heather's question about it being imposing another step, if it's done properly, it should just be the cost of doing business, like making sure you comply with the code. But going to a review board, which you aren't even.
We're not a review board.
So even if they had to come to you, you could go complete, I mean, not you four, because you five are fabulous, but another 5 people could come up with all sorts of wacky ideas for a development, right? That would be maybe a waste of time for everybody. Do you see what I'm getting at? So I'm trying to think through, I think what the community wants is they want Old Town to be an authentic representation, perhaps an actual, historic Main Street, if not necessarily Meridian's original Main Street. That's what they want, and I think you guys are in a good position to help that in concert with the planning department.
Exactly, yes.
And I just want to say something. So the planning department already has guidelines. And who reviews those guidelines? I take it nobody other than the planning department. What I would like to see is not necessarily having any other body outside the planning department, but just a set of guidelines for Old Town
Mhm.
that doesn't need any outside review, but just if you're going to build within these certain blocks, here's our guidelines for you. I mean, I'd be thrilled just even to have that.
And I'm ignorant to the fact that that exists or does not. I assumed it did not exist, that there are no design guidelines for Old Town,
There are some
for
guidelines,
new construction.
but I'd have to go back and look at. There are some guidelines for Old Town, but I don't know exactly what exactly they say.
Well, I will get that in the existing conditions section. We'll establish that and then we'll
Yeah, well,
proceed from there.
judging by the new construction on the corner over here, I would say it's not very Old Town.
Yeah, yeah. That seemed to be the consensus of opinion at our SWAT session.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the next page. I know we're craning towards 6, so. So this is, the next one is the protection objective, and your tools to that would be to at least make sure that you get a SHPO determination on the sites that you would like to be on the National Register, knowing that that will not actually protect anything, but that would give you justification to go and try and get a local designation for a district that would potentially be something that you would be able to review proposed development, potentially in concert with the planning department. If we were to give these priorities, this would be kind of a slow 2 years, then another 2 years, then another 2 years. I did put the demolition review ordinance on here under this category. Incorporate the preservation of important historic, cultural, and agricultural resources into city planning and development processes. That's in your plan as an objective, but it needs strategies, and I kind of feel like the 2 objectives before that kind of speak to your primary concerns when it comes to coordinating with the planning department. Although there are things like the exercise that Cassandra's been doing with unofficially, where if something comes that's on their layer of historic resources, that they then come to Cassandra to let her know about that, that could potentially go under this objective. Okay, goal 3 is informing and engaging residents and visitors about historic preservation programs. So I think I can rattle through these pretty quickly. An objective to provide public programs to increase awareness of preservation. The next one is to improve preservation education efforts. That's where we talk about a strategy related to the Meridian Library. And then I think there's another one more under goal 3. Increase community understanding, and this is where we have some strategies related to training. And I've listed the top 3 things that came back from the survey about topics that people would be interested in. Again, if somebody is throwing money at you, or Cassandra is trying to think of what to apply for a grant, she has some things to work with, some ideas and things that are on here. Anybody have any questions about this? You can maybe go back to this first. Yeah, there you go. Supporting and promoting Idaho Archaeology and Historic Preservation Month. An awards program of your own, or some other kinds of programming related to recognition. You guys do a really great job under objective 3.2 already terms of your presentations and videos and website. I mean, you'd be the envy of many CLGs around the state with what you've got, plus a staff person. Okay, and then we'll just go to goal 4 then. And I kind of went over these a little bit before, when I was kind of making the case for this particular goal, and the things that are intended here. Here's kind of where we put in this, initiate modifications to the zoning ordinance with the planning division to include design review to the list of HPC responsibilities to any areas governed by future overlay districts. So this would be a way to make sure that you have that authority to do that, which all this says is you'll initiate those modifications. It doesn't say you will execute those modifications. Better way to make sure that you have access to all your information. Maybe that's getting more familiar, getting a better, more information on how to use iCris more effectively. I did talk to Shippo about that recently. And let's see, the 4.3 is making sure you guys are trained and that you have people sort of in the wings and you get your annual funding. So I think that's it. I'm happy to stay around and we can talk about this some more, or you can confer amongst yourselves. I'd like to have a better version to share with the public. And I think another week, looking at Cassandra, she's avoiding my
You're not making.
eye contact.
I think right now, Sherry, I think if the commission will take a look at this, with their notes, Cassandra, if you could email out your revised version to us. Take a look at it the rest of this week, over the weekend, and then get it back to Ms. Schiffler by Monday. And then by that point, you can go through, wordsmith it, clean it up, whatever,
Mhm.
for the 21st, if that would
Yep.
work.
Yep, I think that'll work.
Okay. Any more
Is Monday
questions?
doable for you all?
That doable? Don't look at me because you're out of here, Jack. If you'd like to have one more little responsibility before you're officially done, we'd appreciate your input. Okay, yeah, take a look at it, make notes on it, and then get it back to Ms. Schiffler first of the week, and she can send our notes to Sherry. Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Our next meeting is the 26th of June. That will be our normal meeting time. Can't think of anything else. Do a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
A second.
Motion by Commissioner Freeze, second by Commissioner Keller, his last second, for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Opposed? Thanks, everybody. We're done. We'll see you.